Hi, everyone. This is Jennifer Bagnaschi with Deep Believer. Today, we have a very impressive guest today. His name is Randall Rathbun. He's a mathematician. He also was a computer scientist engineer. He also has experience in earthquake research. He has a fantastic story today because he actually died in a tragic car accident, went to hell, visited heaven, and came back to tell you a specific testimony and a warning. Randall, please introduce a little bit more about yourself.
Okay. I was born and raised in Montana. My parents were very studious people, and they said, do the best that you can. So I did graduate magna cum laude, valedictorian of my high school, and headed off to Montana State University in Bozeman, Montana, where I had an electrical engineering scholarship.
That's pretty impressive. So I'm sure you wouldn't consider yourself a genius, but other people would consider yourself a genius, no?
Well, Jen, interestingly enough, there's one thing that I try to avoid doing, and that's intimidating people. I get a little self-aware, and I want everybody to be themselves and not feel intimidated.
Well, it's a good characteristic to have. So let's start off with how you became a Christian.
That was very remarkable, Jennifer. I came back from Christmas vacation from Bozeman back to Listown, Montana, on a 180-mile trip in the middle of the winter with blizzards. And my parents told me to stay home with my little brother Michael, who was 10 months younger than me, until they got back from their very first vacation in Hawaii. So they said, we'll bring special Christmas presents for you. And that was my first break from college. Well, I'm sitting there minding my own business. In the afternoon, I hear a loud knock on the door. And people don't knock in the middle of Montana in the wintertime. And so I went to the door, and to my surprise was my older brother, Lowell, 3 years older than me. I had not seen him for about 4 or 5 years. And he had a kid with him named David. And he said, can I come in? And of course, I got him in the house, got the snow brushed off him. And then he proceeded to tell me, you have to come to Mora, Minnesota. Something's happened. I said, well, what? He said that there's something happening, you just have to come. And he actually took off with my brother Michael that very afternoon, and they headed 850 miles back to Mora, Minnesota. My parents got home the next day. They were infuriated. Where's your little brother? And I gave a kind of a dumb answer. I said, I'm my little brother's keeper. And they didn't like that answer. And back we went, and we walked into, I didn't know what was going on. It was a religious revival with Lutheran, Missouri Synod Lutheran, and God had visited and had shown us about being born again. So as a result of that, I got born again at 12:39 a.m. in the morning.
Wow.
On December 29th, 1969, in the study of the pastor downstairs in his study. I still remember that experience very well to this day.
And how old were you again?
I was 18 years old at that time.
Oh, so you were older. Okay, so were you active in the church when you became a Christian? Or?
I was very active in the Lutheran church. I was considered the best communicant, catechist person taking catechism. The pastor, he said, you're one of the most religious kids we've ever met. I was always lighting the candles and putting them out on Sunday. But even my brother attended the Baptist services because he felt there needed to be more than what we were getting in the Lutheran church. So we attended that too. So we were very active religiously.
So you attended the Lutheran church as well as the Baptist church?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so when I spoke to you earlier, you mentioned that you had a childhood where your father may have opened doors that may have led you to an incident in August of 2002. Can you just tell us a little bit about your childhood?
I don't know that much about that, Jennifer, but I do know definitely that a spiritual door was opened up, and I was attacked at night. Often 2 or 3 times a week, I would be attacked. And the only reason for that to happen is when a parent has a doorway open, and these were horrific nightmares. Well, I do remember one where I tried to resist and fight back. This was when I was in junior high school, and the being actually stabbed me through the heart. And it was such intense pain, I thought I was going to die on the spot. When I woke up, I was sweating profusely from the fear and the pain. So I don't know exactly what my father did, but there was a door that had definitely been opened. I tried to get my parents to help, but they couldn't help me. And that was kind of a very helpless feeling for me, to know that you're still open to these attacks and even your parents can't help you.
Now, did your parents not know about the supernatural realm? Did they not believe in demons or angels, or were they even saved?
My dad was not that religious. He had to actually kind of be pulled to go to church on Sunday. He was very reluctant on going to the service. My mother was very studious, very religious, and so that we had an appointment every Sunday. He just was not that religious a person. So when I tried to talk, my mom dismissed it and said, "Oh, you'll get over it. You'll grow over it. You know, we all have nightmares, but you'll get over it, son. Everything will be fine." Unfortunately, it wasn't fine.
But was it a nightmare? Was it a nightmare, or was it something physical? Did you really feel this, or was it just something in your dreams, the nightmares, or was it?
It went from a dream to lucid dreaming, where I was in control, and I knew I was in my body, but this being came up. He was very real. Came out of nowhere. That fear was tremendous, and when he stabbed me, I didn't expect that to happen at all, and the pain was horrific. I read later that people who have heart pain say it's one of the worst, strongest pains the human body can experience. So I believe it.
Wow, because I know at times when I would have nightmares, I couldn't feel the pain, and I've heard others say the same too. But you say you felt it, which I believe it's truly spiritual warfare that was coming after you. Okay, so let's go more back to you being involved in the church. So you came to a point where you became a worship leader at one of your churches.
Well, that was very interesting how that happened. I don't mean to take a side trip here, but my brother was actually in the group of Mora. He stayed there. I came back from Christmas, born again, but then I felt that I needed to go to Mora. So I stayed out. I actually quit college, much to my father's anger and regret, and was out there in Mora for about 5 years until I was actually kicked out of that group of people. They're still going today, believe it or not. Christ's Household of Faith, they're now located in St. Paul, Minnesota. But I was with that group of people for about 5 years. I still remember the very day I got kicked out, June 5th, 2:05 p.m., 1975.
That proves you are a math person. You love numbers.
Yes, unfortunately.
I hate math. Okay, so how long were you in worship for?
Well, I need to answer your question. I'm sorry.
Sure.
After I came over to, my father invited me to come over to California, and on my birthday, I landed in San Diego and stayed with them and got to know a wonderful church, charismatic church that was led by Vernon Dortner and Merlin Carruthers. And it was kind of a key church in the country at that time for a charismatic movement. He had a book that was very popular called Prison to Praise. So I joined that group of people, and that's where I learned about the baptism in the Holy Spirit and the gifts of the Spirit and that. And I got very active in the church and actually came on the worship team. I had done band and choraleers and choir in high school, so I was just taking advantage of my musical abilities there. But I got very active in the worship on Praise Center. I was on the worship team helping lead the worship first Sunday.
Okay, now during that course, though, you began to backslide. What happened?
Well, how do I say it? Maybe it's not so much backsliding as it's leaving doors open that should have been shut. In college, the very first time I got exposed to the wrong stuff was when my colleague and roommate in high school invited me over to his dorm after about 2 or 3 weeks of setting in. And Jennifer, when I walked inside his dorm room, it was plastered literally from floor to ceiling, even on the ceiling, with pictures from Playboy. And I felt terribly trapped and impacted by that. Something got a hold of me at that time that did not let go. There was an attraction that kind of set up inside of me. Well, fast forward, well, here I am in San Diego County up in Escondido, and I haven't let go of this stuff yet. And I say this, and I'm going to be somewhat sad saying this with regrets to my Heavenly Father, but it leaves a very bad scar in your soul and spirit. And it's an open access door for the enemy and wicked, evil spirits, immoral spirits to come in. And I literally was severely oppressed by that. And I felt every time I looked at pornography, it would pull me in more and more. And finally, it went from just looking to where I had to go downtown San Diego and actually participate in fornication, to say it for what it is, sin of fornication. I'll absolutely end you up in hellfire. But I was doing that secretly. I didn't want anybody to know about this at all. But I knew I was in a terrible shape. And my conscience would convict me all the time, particularly Sunday. Randall, how can you help lead worship but be participating in these things?
So you had two different lives, obviously. People at church thought Randall was one person, but there was another side.
Yeah, Randall the hypocrite.
Now, let's go into that day, August 2002. You were working at the Aviator location, or where were you?
I was working for Northrop Grumman at that time, and had just recently bought out TRW. It was the Military Electronics Aviation Division. It was located in Rancho Bernardo, California, which is south of Escondido, just across the lake there, Lake Hodges. And I was doing earthquake research, but I made a blunder in a presentation to upper management, and I realized I kind of scotched my career. I was an up and promising engineer. I was being considered for a technical fellowship, which is a real honor for engineers. And I had gotten my job in the F-22 work because the general manager came across my mathematics paper. He was so impressed. He said, "I'll give you any job you want in any one of my 12 divisions." So I picked the F-22 because it was the most stable program. But all that time, I was still living this secret life. So that week, I got called on the carpet because I was starting to have a nervous breakdown, Jennifer. I realized that I had kind of done it to myself in my career. And my supervisor was telling me, "Randall, you have to get back on your work. You can't be doing earthquake stuff or whatever." And it led to me discovering that a company wanted to psychologically evaluate me. And at that moment, I thought for sure that's the end of it. And I left Friday evening tremendously filled with fear. I was very afraid. I headed down the highway to San Diego First Assembly, hoping to find some help at that church. Unfortunately, I did not. I found kids having a party, but they were not into scriptures. They were having a high school celebration party.
And this was at the church?
Yes, at the church. Yeah. Okay. They just did an event, but nobody was about ready to counsel.
Yeah, they were having a good time.
No. So I walked the neighborhood for about 2 hours, and when people saw me, the look on my face, they shut the door. It was like, we know something's really wrong with Randall, but we're not about to even talk to him. And that led to a feeling of even more rejection. So I finally realized I was not going to get any help. I got in my car about 9:30 and headed up, and that's when I had my accident.
Now, I know that you mentioned that you were driving in the car, having a nervous breakdown. and you hear a voice. What voice was this? And what did the voice say?
I heard a voice behind me, a little bit behind on my left side, and it spoke to me and it said, I am God. I will pilot your car to prove that I am. I will take over control of your car. And silly me, the science part of me said, okay, I'll run the test. You take control of the car, but I'll watch. And if the car veers off, then I know absolutely that you are not God. And the voice said, okay. And I took my both hands off the steering wheel. The car went straight a little bit, and then all of a sudden it veered to the right. And at that moment, I realized that I had been tricked. But it was too late, Jennifer. At that moment, the wheels went off the pavement onto the soft shoulder, grabbed the wheel. I could not gain control of the vehicle. And it hit the light pole, the concrete stanchion that holds up the light pole. It clipped that.
Wow. So this voice was a demonic spirit lying, saying that he was God. Did you have a feeling that maybe this wasn't God?
Had a feeling that
this wasn't God? Or
yes,
did you
I did. That's why I wanted to run the test, saying, I'll give you a test, but if you fail the test, then I absolutely know that you are not God. I will tell everybody on the planet, please, please, never ever take your hand off the steering wheel.
I agree to that one. Please keep it on about 10 and 2. Okay, so you're driving, you listen to this voice to give it a test, you take your hands off, you go straight for a little bit, then it veers to the right, and you crash. Now, when you crashed, did you feel yourself crash? Did you feel the impact? And when did you know that you left your body?
The moment I noticed the trouble when I did the impact on the left side of the vehicle. And then at that moment, I blacked out for less than a second. Now, when I woke up, I was actually about, I would say, 4 or 5 feet above the car in the air, but I was on my back, supine, and my wrists hurt tremendously. And I realized that something was wrong. And slowly, I figured out that I was chained up and I was being held by this being. And I had 3 sets of chains on me. I could not break them. They were so strong. And I was totally chained up, and I was above the car, and I was very conscious now, very aware of what was going on. And I knew somehow I was outside the vehicle.
So at this point, did you know you had died? Did you know you were outside of your body?
I actually didn't have too much time to think about that because I was hurting from the chains. They were cutting into my legs and my ankles and my wrists, and the pain was very sharp. And I was trying to struggle loose. And at the same time, this being was shaking me like I was a leaf. He had a lot more power than I did. And then he was screaming and screaming. So I was not aware that I was outside of my body until about 2 or 3 seconds later when I realized, whoa, Randall, you're out. You're not in the car anymore. You're chained up.
Wow. Now, where in your body were you chained? I know around your wrist, and where else?
On my ankles, and my wrists were chained behind my back. Okay. And then I discovered, to my frustration, that these wrist and ankle chains were pulled tight together by a 3rd chain. So you'd end up in a crouched position. It's not a normal position. It was very confining, very uncomfortable, but I was chained up very securely in that position.
Now, could you see this being? I know you said it was a being. Did you just have a knowing that it was a being, or did you see the being?
I did not see him because he was behind me. He was very careful to keep himself strictly behind me. I tried to turn. He would not let me turn. He had control of me with the chains. Now, I tried, I think 2 or 3 times to turn and see, but he would not allow me to move. And I was very securely held. I heard him as clearly as I'm talking to you now. Absolutely no doubt of what he was shouting.
What happened after that?
Well, he shouted, "He's mine, he's mine, he's mine. His name is liar, liar, liar. I'm taking him to the lake of fire." And at that moment, it was so loud, it hurt my ears. At that moment, all of a sudden, he jerked me, and it fell just like a free fall, like you had stepped into an elevator shaft. And at that moment, I felt falling as I was being taken by the beam, but we were plummeting with it was almost heart-sickening speed downward into blackness.
Now, I remember you mentioning that as you were falling, you saw something and you heard something. There were words. What was it?
Well, being tremendously frightened at that time of falling and realizing that maybe that being was going to take me to hell, I couldn't break the chains. I literally cried out to God with all my strength, and I said, God, what is happening? Why is this happening to me? And instantly, 3 scriptures materialized. They were actually living scriptures, and they materialized in the air in front of my vision, and I could read them. But they also spoke at the same time. And my heart sunk. My heart felt really sick. I almost felt sick to my stomach when I read the scriptures and they talked. The wages of sin is death. Be not deceived, God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man sows, that shall he reap. And I could not serve 2 masters. Could not serve 2 masters. And at that point, after reading the scriptures, I think I judged myself, Jennifer. And I realized you deceived yourself. You tricked yourself into believing everything is okay. But the scriptures are announcing the true verdict here. You really are headed for hell because the wages of sin is death, just like the scripture said. And I had only deceived myself. I had not fooled God, and I most certainly had not fooled that evil spirit that held me in its grasp.
Wow. And at this time, you were born again, correct?
Yes.
You were Christian.
I was.
You were a born again Christian.
Yes.
So would you say the once saved, always saved narrative is not legit?
I have to be a little more bold than that, Jennifer, and say that doctrine is not true. And even as a Christian, you can lose your salvation and be lost.
I agree. And there is scripture that backs it up, multiple, that says that he will blot your name out if. What would you say to the person who was raised in religion that tells you, once I say this prayer at the altar, I'm saved, I can live how I want, I can cheat on my spouse, I can kill, murder, I can watch pornography, I can do drugs, whatever. I can just live a simple life because I'm sealed. Jesus died on the cross for everything that I'm doing, and I'm covered, I'm good. What would you say to that person? You haven't experienced hell, because I've heard multiple times of people who have gone to hell just as you were as Christians, and they all say the same thing. I was sold a bill of goods when it comes to once saved, always saved. What would you say to everyone watching right now?
I would have to tell everybody, number one, you need to fear God. Absolutely need to fear God. Jesus gave the example where multitudes of people came up to him and said, did we cast out devils in your name? Did we heal in your name? Did we do all kinds of amazing works? They fell absolutely in trying to argue with God that they were Christians. And what did the Lord tell them? Depart from me, you evildoers. I don't even know you, okay? And Jesus in John says that this is real love, to keep our commands. Don't kid yourself. You are not keeping God's command if you're looking at pornography or you're allowing sin into your heart and life. You are not kidding anybody except yourself. And there is consequence for that. It's an eternal consequence. That's what I would say, Jennifer.
Thank you for that. Now, let's go back to you. Now you're still falling, correct? You're falling in hell. Now, what does hell sound like? What does it smell like? What does it look like? Can you even see? What's going on?
Well, before I answer that, I need to say something to the whole audience here. Not a single one of you, unless you've had experience like mine, even can grasp what it is to know that you're on your way to hell and you'll be there forever and ever and ever. After I read the scriptures and the demon grabbed me and hurled me along further, I realized, and this was a terrible, terrible thought, which I could not think, but I had to think it. Randall, you did yourself in. hell is your final destination and you are not escaping. Jennifer, I cannot begin to tell you what it feels like when that door of hope is shut and you cannot get that door open anymore. And I was resigned. I kind of resigned myself to my fate and said, Randall, you really did it to yourself. Now you got hell for all eternity. I was sarcastic.